So that's being recorded.
Perfect. Thank you, Linda. Well, it's 6 o'clock, so we can go ahead and get started. We don't have as a huge crowd tonight. Looks like 28 started out, but that's okay. I'm sure there'll be lots of other people that join in as we progress through this. There usually is. I don't have a whole lot tonight, but I do have a few things I want to go over for club business. Before we get into club business though, did anybody have any turnings that they've done in the last month or two here that they would like to do a little small show and tell? If so, let's do those first. So does anybody have anything that they turned here lately that they want to talk about or show off?
Well, here's one I'm working on right now as we speak, doing the coloring on it. And I'm figuring I'm gonna plan on taking it down to SWAT and let people down in Texas see what I do.
Beautiful.
But yeah, just started.
How big is that
It's
one?
beach. What's that?
How big is that one?
It's like 13 and a half diameter.
Beautiful.
Yeah, that's looking really nice.
Thank
What
you.
kind of wood is it, Doug?
It is beach.
Beech.
Yeah. So, yeah.
Wonderful. Anybody else have anything they would like to show?
I got a couple things, I guess. I don't know, can you see these guys? I've got a couple, these actually kind of backed off just to do some more basic, just working on the shape, the curves.
Mark,
stuff.
can you turn off your background?
Maybe. Let's see.
I think it would work if you held it straight up in front of you, Mark.
Yeah,
Okay.
it looked like it was showing it when it was right in front.
Okay, I will try to do that. Let's see if I can get some light on.
There you go.
Is that, are you able to see that?
We are.
Oh, okay. Well, cool. So anyway, as I say, I went for simple on these guys. I've got 5 or 6 more that are smaller, under 6 inches diameter. This is probably 7 or 8. And then with the pyrography, the geometric pattern, does it pick up on that? Oh, it looks like it's not focused at all.
Just go down just a hair with it.
It only works if it thinks it's you.
Yeah.
Yeah, it needs to have your shirt as the background. There you go. Now we can see it.
Oh, okay, cool. Thanks for the assist here. So anyway, as I say, I've got the geometric pattern pyrography around the side here of the guy. This is red gum, which I'm unfortunately not going to be able to get hold of anymore. I love this stuff because this is just the Osmo finish on this thing.
Beautiful.
And man, that red gum is just gorgeous stuff. And then here's a birch version of the same series, very much the same size. Anyway, that's what I've been doing lately.
Beautiful.
Okay.
Is that Osmo oil on that one too?
It is.
How do you like that Osmo?
Oh, jury's still out. I like it. I like it. I had a weird issue on a piece of walnut on a big bowl that I couldn't get it to actually seal. There was areas in it where it looked like it kept soaking in. It kept drying up. It's not that thick a piece of wood either. I mean, you would think that at some point it'd saturate. But I'd have it. I'd put a coat on it, let it dry, put another coat on it, let it dry. Wipe it all down, and the next day I'd come out and there'd be these areas that again they just looked completely dry. It's just the weirdest thing.
I've had problems with lots of different things on figured walnut because it just soaks the finish up, and like completely different ways and, you know,
Yeah,
Yeah.
that may be
various
what's going
areas.
on. This isn't very heavily figured, but that still may be what's going on.
yeah.
I mean, it is, you can see that it is with the different types of grain patterns. It's following the grain patterns, you know, so
Right.
yeah, pretty frustrated with that.
Well, beautiful work.
Thank you.
Anybody else have anything they'd like to show?
So I got a
Yeah.
few pieces out of what who was working at the woodlot at our chainsaw day. This is from a piece of maple that apparently nobody wanted or couldn't fit in their truck. I got about 5 pieces out of this maple crotch, which was really fun. The camera is not going to do it justice,
Getting some of that.
but yeah, that's really nice figure in this whole piece. It was like a double crotch with three branches, and I got several nice pieces out of it. And I've been using the Osmo Poly X, and I'm real happy with it. At least my experience, it goes on real easy, and
Is that what's on that?
that's what's on here. And a little bit of buffing. I didn't buff it too much, but just a little bit. But that if you get a good surface on the wood, the Osmo really does shine up pretty nice.
Did you buff it with wax at all?
I
Or is
did-
it just buffed?
This was just
dry
with the
wood.
red and the white wheel. I didn't want to put
Okay.
wax on it.
Well, it polished up nicely.
Yeah. So
What did you sand it up to?
probably just 400. I might have gone to 600, but I think this was just 400, if I remember right.
Is that, you're talking before or after you applied it?
No, before, just
Okay.
raw wood up to about 400, and then I put the Osmo on with the white Scotch Brite pad.
Mhm.
I'm kind of experimenting with other things because that takes a little more elbow grease than
Right.
I would like to apply.
Yeah.
I've got a limited supply of elbow grease anymore. So
Yeah. I've sanded it after I put on a few coats, and then, well, I mean, I sanded it before, obviously, you know,
yeah,
up fairly high, as you say, the like 360 at least. But yeah, then after, you know, I gave it like a week to sit, and went back in with some pretty high count abrasives, and it really made a difference. That stuff polishes up pretty well.
Right.
this was kind of
Beautiful.
fun because I was that maple log was not wet, but it wasn't dry. So kind of in the middle. So this one I did, I just finished it and let it sit. And a few of the pieces I had to true up the base again on flat sandpaper after it sat for a while, but it didn't move too much. So I was happy about that. And I did, after it dried for a week or so, I did sand it again just to get rid of some of the raised grain that was in there. But
Beautiful.
that's what you missed at the woodlot if you weren't there. That was the
Was that part of the
rejects.
big, was that part of the big log or?
That
big
was part of that big maple log that,
Yeah.
I forget who was working on it. A bunch of guys were working on it. And
Right.
that was the piece nobody wanted when I went home. So
So this was
That's
from
awesome.
that same maple piece there as well. So what this is a salt and pepper piece.
Love it.
So you just use a little scoop and get what you want. I can't turn it because it's full. But anyway, what I can show you is that I put a little groove in the top and filled it with blue mica and epoxy. I actually had a crack in it, so I just filled that in the same.
Very
Same
nice.
thing. So that's what's that same piece of maple that Dave had, and then I just put to mark the pepper, I put a piece of walnut in. So, you know,
So it's a box in a box.
yeah, it's a double high box.
That's pretty neat.
Chris,
Awesome.
the knob on the top, is it the same piece of wood or was it attached?
So this is a separate piece of walnut. So
Oh, it's walnut. I couldn't see that.
I
the
made a
glare
little
of it.
spot, and I had a nice sharp finial on there. And the first time my wife picked it up, she says, "You're rounding that off."
Different tastes. Oh, it was beautiful,
Linda, your
Chris.
camera's
Awesome.
pointed to the ceiling.
Linda was talking to you if you didn't hear your name. Your camera was pointing upwards.
I know I was eating.
anybody-
I was eating, but okay,
Oh,
I'm about
No
done.
worries, as long as you know.
Yeah, thank you.
Anybody else have something they would like to show?
Can you hear me? There you go. I got something.
Yep.
Yeah. I've been working on a platter that's going to be a gift platter, actually. This is actually the back of my platter. And
Wow.
I do the edges with, you know, I each little section, I put an X in it. And on the platter portion where the grays are here, I actually did the X's. I don't know if you can see that, but I did the X's.
Tiny little like.
And then the center has just one of these little medallions with a hummingbird on it here. So like I say, this is the back of the platter, and the front of the platter is going to be the lady that does all of the painting on our wig stands. We're going to divide this platter here. It's divided into 8, and the guy whose this is for is a internationally known dentist who kind of started the whole dental thing with wild animals. And so this is a platter that's going to be made in recognition of him. And so we're going to paint dogs on this one, cats on this one, and then the other 6, like we're going to scatter between lions and tigers and bears and the giraffes and whatever else he's worked on, which is quite a few species. So she's going to be painting this area right in here, and then his picture in the center here. But like I say, this is the back of the platter.
Wow.
This is the last what I'm doing here. So
That's amazing work. I have one critique, and that's that is such a beautiful piece of work on the bottom of it. I wished it was on top.
and this
I
is,
mean,
you
it's
know,
just
obviously,
gorgeous.
these platters, you know, will be setting on a stand, so people
Sure.
will be able to, you know, it's not like a wall hanging where
Yeah.
you can see it. So yeah, and
I think
I liked this pattern and I like the color, so I'm going to be doing another platter like that for another person, and using the same, you know, kind of the same color scheme anyway, maybe a different design, but yeah, I thought this just ended up being one of my better ones, I thought, for the back.
I think you need to make a special stand for that just really shows off both sides.
Yeah.
I know she'll do amazing work. I'm not saying that at all, but that work on the back is fabulous.
Yeah. I'm gonna be turning it-
Clarence,
Yes,
you said something about the gray on the,
yeah.
and you broke up or somebody else was on or something.
Okay.
What did
the
you say?
Gray portion, like on the edge here, you can see that I've got, you know, put an X in each of the compartments there. And I tried, I've never done this on the front before, but everywhere where you see gray, I've also put an X within that one. And so it's not like I've just covered over like these here. It's not like there was nothing when I put in the collar, but I covered over X's there. And so it kind of actually, when you see it, almost adds a depth to it. So
Beautiful.
it's,
Clarence, so what kind of paint did you use?
I use like the Prisma markers. It's not paint. It's just the
It's a
regular marker.
pen?
Yeah, it's a pen. Mhm.
Did
Color
you do a clear coat over it, or?
Yeah, this here, the back here now has the clear coat on it. And then when my lady friend gets done doing the front, then I'll do a clear coat over that, so it doesn't any bleeding. And she'll probably be using acrylic paint on the front of it, just the way she is. So I'll be doing a clear coat on the front of it then. So
It's beautiful. So I hope that you can bring that to our first in-person meeting, because that would just be an amazing piece to put hands on or see in person. At least.
yeah, I might be able to. Our meeting's not until October, so I hope she'll have it done by the time we'll have our first in-person meeting, so I can show the rest of that then.
I
So.
thought it was September. Yeah, September is our first one. August is our first, is a pizza party, and then September is our first in person.
Yeah, and my meeting where we're,
Oh,
this is in October. Yeah.
oh, I got you.
My
Okay.
meeting, so we should have time for me to, hopefully she'll get it done in time and I can bring it to our meeting and then take it to Pete for the meetings.
Absolutely beautiful.
Thank you.
Anybody else have anything or any comments on that one before we move on?
I'd like to talk on wig stands real quick.
Okay, Joe, your video's off.
Okay, well,
If you want to be on video,
all right,
it doesn't matter.
okay, real quick. I'd like to thank Jenny for the acknowledgement on the wig stand project. Bit of good news. We started a wig stand project when my wife was diagnosed with stage 2 metastatic breast cancer. It's been 2 years. She just had her mammogram 2 weeks ago and totally cancer free. So needless to say, we're quite happy about that. And,
Wonderful.
right. And, you know, she's still going through a lot, but basically on a wig stand project, American Cancer Society is supposed to be opening up this month. And if anybody has any wig stands available, please get in contact with me, either phone or email, and we can arrange picking them up and get them distributed accordingly.
Perfect.
So Joe, the lady that does the painting on the wig stands, I actually hadn't turned in the other ones that we had that I showed you last. I'm going to be taking this platter over to her tomorrow morning, and she's going to have 6 more wig stands done. So I'll have at least 10 of them for you, and I'll drop those up at Woodcraft tomorrow.
Okay, I can pick them up on Saturday then.
Okay, very good.
Clarence, can you get a picture of them or Joe, somebody, and send to Jenny for the newsletter too?
Sure, I'll do that.
That would be amazing.
Okay.
Anybody else have any more turnings they would like to show before we get on with the rest of club business? Okay, well, with that being said, let's move on to club business. We don't have too much time here. I know Linda has an awesome demonstration for us tonight. So I just have a few things. I want to remind everybody about our social hour in 2 weeks. I don't have the exact date in front of me, but it's in the newsletter, and it'll be an awesome time again. It's a Zoom social hour. Everybody's welcome. All the club members are welcome to join. It's just a bunch of us getting together and basically talking turning, showing work, showing things that we're working on, talking and discussions about things that we're doing. And if there's any problems we're having, we discuss it and work them out in a great setting amongst friends. So it's a great thing to join, and every month we're learning some different stuff. And we do have a couple of shop tours again. We're having a shop tour. It seems like every one, or I think we just have one. I think if I remember right, it was Dave Landers is doing one this month. I'm not sure, but it's neat to see everybody's shops. You guys have some amazing shops, everything from small shops to just huge work areas. So if you are looking for ideas for your shop, it's a great thing to see as well. So please join us for the social hour. And just look for the link. Jenny will be sending it out usually a few days before the meeting. And it's in 2 weeks on a Thursday. I want to remind everybody that on August 7th, we're having our pizza party at Chris's house. He's doing the pizzas again, and I'm sure I'll let him talk about that a little bit more if he would like to. Otherwise, the info will be out to the club members as well. So join us. You're welcome to bring your significant other as well, and come out, and we'll have our first in-person meeting and some pizza. In September, we're going to have our first in-person meeting back in Woodcraft, and we're looking forward to that. So make sure you mark your calendars for that. That is September 9th. I don't know that we're going to be able to air that one. on Zoom because we're still working out the kinks on internet, and I'll talk about that in a minute. But so try to plan to come to that one if possible. I want to remind the Pen Club people or people that are interested in Pen Club that the Pen Club does meet 2 weeks after our normal Pen meeting, our normal wood turning meeting. So that'll happen September 23rd. We're going to have our first in-person Pen meeting again. And everybody's welcome to come to that as well. There's no additional dues or anything needed, just show up. Let's see here. As far as the internet connection, I touched base a little bit on that, on getting live, going to where we're working on getting that to where that we can possibly do IRDs to them. So where we're at right now is that Chris is working on talking to another internet provider, and I'm working on getting another hotspot set up to check and see if that would be a viable option.
No.
We have somebody that's that has a Verizon phone. Jenny is will do a test with us on that. We're still looking for one more person with basically T-Mobile as their carrier, and somebody that has you know, a fairly decent newer phone with T-Mobile, and then a data plan that has a data plan on it. It won't use much data for the test, and we just need it for the test to see if that would be an option. So if anybody has T-Mobile and a phone that's, I would say 5 years or newer, and then and a data plan, send me a message if we can plan on maybe meeting at Woodcraft and just doing a test. It would take about an hour.
Bob, I got T-Mobile.
Okay, Joe, I'll reach out to you then about that. Thank you.
Okay.
And then we're still working on trying to figure that out. We've got all the video equipment basically that we need. I think Dave's got that put together. Again, thanks Dave for all your hard work on that. And the missing link right now that we have is the internet. And once we get that, hopefully then we'll be able to continue doing demonstrations both in person and putting them out on Zoom, so that the people that have joined our club, which is some of you, from far away can still join us, and some of you that may not be able to travel can still join us, or some of you that are having, you know, a health issue or something and just can't make that meeting that night, maybe you can at least join the meeting. So anyhow, we're working on that. So that's the update there.
Bob, I'll give a quick update on the other possibility.
Okay,
So
you want to do that now?
Yeah, I'm working with one of the local internet providers. I need to get out to Woodcroft and talk to Bruce, I guess it is. They need a written permission before they'll do a site survey and make sure whether they can connect. It's a line of sight internet service. I don't have the price yet, but I'm thinking I'm going to be able to talk them into a residential rate, which will give us something we can likely afford. So anyway, I'm cautiously optimistic about that as a way to go.
Wonderful. That's good news. And thank you for all your hard work on that too. And I think you need to speak with either Bob or Wayne to get the written permission. Bob's the manager,
Yeah,
so.
right.
And then the next thing I have on my list here is I want to thank Clarence. He has stepped up to run the EOG. He accepted the EOG chair for next year, or for this year and next year, and he's doing a lot of hard work on the grant committee part of it right now. I want to thank Dave Amos and Jim Bissett as well. They have volunteered to be the additional chair holders to help with the committee. So hopefully going 2022, we'll be back on track to get some grants out to people again and get that back on track. I want to remind everybody in the newsletter this time, at the bottom of the newsletter, and we're going to put it in each newsletter from now on, was the links to Amazon Smile and to King Supers. And they're not, the links are basically to sign up for a basically is what happens with like Amazon is that if you sign up for Amazon Smile and you put Rocky Mountain Woodturners as your donor, then the club gets 0.5% of everything you spend on Amazon. And it's a donation that comes from Amazon. It doesn't cost you anything else out of your pocket. And it's very similar to the same thing at King Supers. It's a pretty easy thing to set up. I did it on Amazon already, and I'm going to do King Supers here in the next week. I can tell you that I just did Amazon 3 weeks ago, and our family is already just looking at it. And we don't spend that much, but we've already made like $5 for the club. So every penny helps. That money, the club definitely needs the money right now. I can tell you that we've been working on the budget, and part of the thing right now is that in basically the last 2 years is that the symposium hasn't ran and we haven't had any of the wood bank. So there's been no incomes from those. And while the club is okay financially, the things like the monthly internet service that we're trying to get going is something that's out of the budget at the moment. So we need to build those funds back up, and that would help do that. So I want to encourage everybody to follow those links and sign up for them. It doesn't cost you anything extra to list the club as a donation. It costs Amazon and it costs King Supers. And it's because we have a 401 or a nonprofit status that we can do this. So let's take advantage of that free money and make that happen if you can. We would appreciate it. On that same note, I know some of you people, or some of our club members aren't local. And like we talked about earlier, some of you maybe don't have perfect health and can't make the meetings. I want to encourage everybody to let's help build this club and keep it going that way with our IRDs and help with donations to the club. We are a nonprofit, so we can take donations and you get the tax write-off. So I want to encourage our members to think about donations if you're in a position to do that. Again, the whole club would benefit from it. I want to encourage everybody to get your photos in for the newsletter to Jenny. She usually puts a newsletter out by the first of the month, and I think she would like to have the photos probably by the last week of the month if possible. And skill level doesn't matter. Just anything you would like to show. If you want to do a short write-up about it, that's great. Type of wood, maybe a little talk on what you did or how you did it, or if you had problems with it or your finish on it, or anything you want to share would be appreciated. Let's keep that going though. The newsletter is looking amazing. She's doing amazing work with it, and it's just great to be able to have some color in it with and a variety of pictures. So I hope that will continue even after we're meeting in person. And I think that we're going to have the photographer try to photograph all our pieces when we're meeting back in Woodcraft and get those in the newsletter as well. So think about doing that, please. I want to remind everybody that July 17th and 18th, 9 days from now, AAW has their virtual symposium. It's going to be an amazing turnout. It's going to be an amazing event. There is, I don't remember how many demonstrators planned, and all kinds of different things that are happening. And there's still time to sign up for it. So mark those dates on your calendar, July 17th and 18th. You can sit on your couch and watch this from the comfort of your home. You don't have to travel to it. It'll be an amazing deal. And I want to encourage people, at the same time, if you're not a member of AAW, to to think about joining up. There's a lot of benefits to that, but I won't go into them tonight. That's all I had, but I do want to pass it on to a few of our other chair people. Chris, did you have anything from the vice president's report?
101 members. Let's see, read up on the August 7th event as far as our pizza party. The only thing I ask is if you've not been vaccinated, seriously think about doing so, or, you know, it's an outdoor event. Just be considerate, because I know we have some older members. So I'm not going to say you can't come, but I just ask you to be considerate. We're going to provide most everything. So just let me know if you're coming. If you have a guest, that's great. The more the merrier. We'll just make more pizzas. So looking forward to it.
Yeah, make sure you, I think, are we going to do RSVPs for that? I think we said, Chris.
Yeah, just email me. It was in the newsletter.
Perfect.
So,
all right. And then Dave Amos, do you have a treasurer's report for us tonight?
Can you hear me?
I can.
Okay. Savings is $4,848.30. Checking is $4,131.82.
Wonderful. Did you have anything else you'd like to share tonight?
No, I think that's it. We just have that insurance, $57 every month. So we're need to replenish here.
Right.
We have more outgo than we have income right now, but I mean, it's not bad, but we just have to be aware of that. So.
Understand. Wonderful. Thank you. I'm pretty sure I haven't seen Jenny, and I think she mentioned that she would not be here tonight. Jenny, are you here or?
No, she's traveling.
Okay. Jenny is our secretary and our newspaper editor, and she's traveling tonight, so won't be with us. Tom Zanotti, did you have anything on future demonstrations?
No, not yet, Bob. I'm still working on September. I did have somebody in mind for October, but they are not available, so I'm working on it. I'm hopefully get somebody with a Christmas oriented theme for September for our next meeting, our first actually live meeting in a year and a half or whatever it is. So, but I'll find somebody.
Wonderful. And I think that would be a great theme for that time of year. So, okay. Anything else, Tom?
No, that's it, Bob. Thanks.
Okay. And then did anybody else have anything that they would like to, any club news they would like to discuss? Okay. If not, let's move on to our demonstrator tonight. I know that's what everybody's here for. Tonight we have Linda Ferber, and I'm going to hand the floor over to her. I'm excited to give the floor to her tonight and welcome her on behalf of Rocky Mountain Woodturners. Welcome, Linda. Would you tell us a little bit about your demo, and we look forward to it.
Thank you. It's so nice to be here. And I appreciate you mentioning the AAW symposium. So I have just, I'm on two committees for AAW, the Women in Turning and Youth Committee. And both of those committees will be doing a panel for what in person they call this special interest night. So the Women in Turning panel will be on being a mentor. So there's 3 on the panel, moderated by Andy Wolf, going into details and how to set up a mentoring program for your chapter, as well as how to be a mentor. And the Youth Committee will have a panel discussion on teaching youth, and there will be representative from chapters and schools that are, when COVID allowed, teaching youth. So that will be available for chapters also, or individuals interested in setting up that kind of program. So there's a lot to see in addition to the demonstrators. So getting to tonight's topic, my name is Linda Ferber, and I've been turning about 20 years. The first 5, 6, 7 years were the slow start. You know, you get one day a week in the shop, and I felt I had a lot to catch up, to learn, and limited time. So how I approach turning then is to concentrate each year on making one type of project, because everyone said, practice, 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 and make the same thing 10 or 100 times. Well, I had limited time, and making 100 of something just sounded unrealistic. But I did approach, and for example, one year was all platters. They weren't all the same shape, but I could look at the progression of the start to the end of the year, and that I felt did, with my limited time, limited tools, and with the old Sears lathe I had, helped me improve. So the last, I think, 4 or 5 years, I've been working on carving, and I went with that same approach. I had picked out 4 different shapes of burrs and tried to explore and see where I could go from that. So what today's message is to get inspired and explore, and take it in small chunks. And so whether it's carving a new type of turning, or any aspect of turning that inspires you, take and break it down and approach it with the attitude that you're exploring, you're learning, you're practicing. So I have a PowerPoint in the video, so that I did the video so we could see the birds very up close and everything. So I'm going to start with a PowerPoint and go through some of these items for us here. So let's, all right, everyone with me? Did I get the screen share going?
Looks great.
Okay, thank you. So this is mark making with power. And mark making is a term used to describe the different lines, patterns, and textures that are made visible as a manifestation of applied or gestural energy. We'll look at the difference in creating texture and pattern. And texture and patterns are terms that describe various decorative elements. A pattern is a visual element that repeats, such as a plaid or stripes, whereas a texture can be felt, such as the surface of a brick or piece of burlap. I really love this quote. Don't wait for inspiration. It comes when you were working. And I'll also love that quote from Beth Ireland that encourages us to look beyond other woodturners for inspiration. Read books, visit museums. All of those areas can help for inspiration. And also something as simple as your daily walk, looking at the plants, listening to the birds, they all offer opportunity to be inspired. With planning and preparation for work, I sort of described some of my process for approaching a project. But before I get to the lathe, I do some planning, and I do sketching on a sketch pad. I cut out pictures. I look at books and etc. So all of those things, they, for me, help me to look at the work in a different aspect. Some people make models if it is a sculpture. I wanted to touch on the tools in the bits. The personal protection is extremely important. So I'm going to stop the video and or the PowerPoint and go to the video that I have on. This is the equipment that I use. So let's watch the video. Nice equipment that I use in carving and wood burning. First off, the personal protection equipment is extremely important. I have a fume extractor. I bought that online from Amazon.
Could you share that video
Considerably, yes, to remove the
so that we can see it?
Yeah, it's not showing.
From the all right area. Let me stop it. And mask is very important as what moves are. Sorry. I'll get that share going again. I'll start it out over at the beginning. Are you with me now?
Yeah, it looks like it is.
Okay.
Looks like it.
Thank you. Hello, this is Linda Ferber. I'm showing today a few of the supplies, equipment that I use in carving and wood burning. First off, the personal protection equipment is extremely important. I have a fume extractor. I bought that online from Amazon. It does help considerably to remove the fumes from the area. And mask is very important as well. I'm using currently the RZ mask, which has replaceable carbon filters. Also, in the bigger picture, in the shop, I have a dust collection, air filtration, and of course, a fan next to the work area. In the carving, I'm using a micro carver, and there's a few bits I want to show you close-up pictures. In the micro carvers, there's several units that you can purchase. The most basic and most common is this blue unit. It can be purchased online. There are a couple different saws that I like. The one on the left is a cudsaw rotor saw. It comes in fine, medium, and coarse. Also, to do the same task, there is the saber tooth rotor saw, also available fine, medium, and coarse. The burrs that I like to use are ball nose. These are good for removing material quickly. The advantage is that the curve on the top also has cutting units that just give you a lot of flexibility when you're hogging out wood. Also available fine, medium, and coarse. This has the same ball nose shape, but it's technically a stump cutter. I like this one for that same reason that I prefer the ball nose. In burrs still, I like the ball cutters. They come in a lot of different sizes, and the ones I do like are diamond. The diamond comes in US, Swiss, and German. Also, I have a set of the cup burrs. Those are very flexible, give you a lot of variety in your pattern. In carving, in wood burning, there's still sanding. Using the micro carver for sanding, there's a few mechanical devices that will make the job a little bit easier. The 3M radial bristle disc. There's a flip off sanding disc. Both of these materials come in different courses, and you can go through the grits just like any other sanding. Also very handy for the carving is this fuzzy wheels. It does, just like the name implies, remove some of the fuzzies. Also, there is a mandrel that I use for adhering with double face tape, different grits of sandpaper. Wood burning. The unit that I have is the RZ razor tip wood burner. There's two pen types that I'd like to talk about. One is the skew tip, very similar shape as the wood turning skew, and a ball tip, very similar shapes and sizes to the carving ball tip. Sharpening is also a skill and something that needs to be done with the wood burning. We'll go into a lot more detail, but this is a start and an overview so you can see the equipment up close. Now on to the demo. Okay, all right. Since I made that video, I have upgraded from my RZ mask, and what I bought is the power cap, and I really love it. I wear it for turning as well as carving. It is extremely light. The battery holds a charge for 8 hours, and I get in my shop most days, but it's rarely 8 hours, so it lasts a full day. So it does give you a lot fresher air than the mask. And we wouldn't be Woodturners if we're not looking at the next piece of equipment. So for me, the next piece that I'm looking for is a Powermatic dust extractor. It's a unit that sits on the floor and just takes all that dust and miraculously makes it disappear. My shop is in the basement of my house, so anything that I do in this room makes its way throughout the whole house. So I like to breathe fresh air, plus I don't like to remove all that dust from the house. So getting back to what we're gonna demo today, I have a few pieces here I wanted to show you, so I'm gonna switch the camera. And like I said, I do I started this with the thought that I'm going to take 3 or 4 burrs and explore what I can do. One of the first,
Burls?
I don't know.
I'm sorry, what?
Yeah, you can continue. I think it was just background. I got it.
All right, thank you. So the mushrooms have the caps I am using with the ball nose. The stems, I'm doing those cuttings with the roto saws. In this area, that is the cup cutters, and here is the ball nose. So each one of these areas of the mushrooms has a combination of all of those burrs. And when I'm doing the carving, right now, everything I'm doing has applied a dry brush painting techniques. So with the carving, I'm looking to areas that the dry brush will pick up and emphasize the painting for. Also, still continuing with the mushrooms, I've been making some mushroom boxes, and it is very similar to the freestanding mushrooms. Not all of them have 100% of the carving. This is an example of a mushroom box where some of the natural wood was left remaining. So I'm going to clear these out.
Linda, a question on that one you just did.
Yes.
So I noticed the stem you could pull off. Does that give you much better access for carving, or did you do that for a different reason?
Oh, I just did that because I wanted a box. It is, the carving is no different if it's a box or solid. It really isn't any different. This one is a little different. It's not a mushroom, it's a flower, and I did some metal stems on the top. So what I do is a lot of practice boards as well, or sample boards. So I made this platter and put a lot of different types of carving and colors and painting. I'm sorry, I'm moving around more than I want here. So in addition to that type of sample board, I work on just hunks of wood and, whoops, box fell over, and make marks. And this one was just drawing lines, just experimenting and getting things, just like when you're doing turning, getting yourself into muscle memory, getting yourself used to how much pressure you need, getting everything, you know, it's just part of the learning process. Turning this mushroom is a very simple spindle turning, and the only real tips I would have is that in the underside area of the mushroom cap, it does work well to have a slight undercut and rounding of the edges on the cap. I think this is a pretty, when a person thinks of a mushroom, this is about one of the most basic shapes that is possible, or the one that first comes to mind. I don't know how many of you have experience with carving, so I'm going to start with very basics. This is the unit that I have. It does have a variable speed, and most of them do. You can, go slower or faster. I find, just like with turning, I don't turn the lathe up very fast, and I do the same with carving. I run it at a medium to moderate speed. The hand pieces on the micro carver have a real easy twist, open, close. Twist to the left, insert the burr, and the first one I'm going to go with is the ball nose. And the camera takes a little bit to focus, and I'm going to take the most worn out one and put that in the machine. Click to the right to tighten the unit. Never start it or engage the machine until something is in the handpiece and it is clicked and secure. I did want to mention this. I think everyone's familiar with this. This is a Dremel. These same burrs will fit in this Dremel machine, and it will allow you to do the carving the same as the micro carver. There are some advantages and disadvantages. The advantage to the Dremel is the price. That is considerably less, and it's a sturdy workhorse. The disadvantage is the size. If you're going to be holding this and carving for a few hours, you're going to get tired. The noise also is a disadvantage, but those things can be worked through. And if this is where you want to start and you're not positive how much carving or where you're going to go, start with a Dremel. I did mention the noise. I'm going to turn on this unit, and I've got everything secure. So it is a fairly...
Linda, a question. Sorry to interrupt. Hope you don't mind.
No problem.
So on the Dremels, have you tried using one of the extensions on the Dremel, hanging the Dremel, because that way you're holding a lot smaller piece?
No, I haven't. I had this unit and this one, so I haven't explored that further. Okay. But that sounds like a good option.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. So I have the machine on. This particular unit just has a start button for engaging, and you probably can hear the thing is running. It is engaged. So on the top of the mushrooms, I like to use the ball nose cutter burr, and this is giving me patterns and textures. Inside each one of these divots, you see the lines that are created by this burr. And the dry brush painting technique will pick up the lines in between each of the divots, and as well as lines underneath. So you're getting patterns and textures. So for starting your carving, you need to really secure your piece that you're working on. And this is a fairly small piece, so I'm able to hold that in my hand and secure it. My arm is supported by my workbench. My right hand has the unit held like a pencil, and with my fingers, I'm creating a triangle of support. 2 or 3 of my fingers connect with a wood piece, and I'm going to put the burr to the wood, apply pressure, and do a little swoop and come back. The same is wood turning. You can make one really big cut, or you can do 2 or 3 little cuts. Either way will work. So I'm going to go over that cut and make it a little deeper. Now on this mushroom cap, I'm wanting it to look fairly organic. So each one of these divots, what I do is rotate the piece and change the direction of the divot. So I've done that, secured the workpiece again, secured my hand, and when you're using this microcarver, you're always putting the carving towards yourself. You're pulling the piece towards yourself. So just like with anything, you start to get into a rhythm, and you can just put it on repeat. Varying the length, varying the depth, all are good things in this instance because we're looking for something to be organic in nature. Each time I work on a piece, I do an area and then do a visual inspection. Like I said, with the dry brush technique, what I'm looking for is the areas that are proud of on the tops of the divots that would hold paint. So I'm going back and inspecting, making sure none of the areas are too big or too ununiform. I'm also looking for areas that might be enhanced by a little bit deeper of a cut. So right here, I think this could use a little deeper cut just to show a little bit more variety. This one also looks like it needs more depth. So this tool, this burr, will do a lot of other cuts, but this is one that I've experimented with scrap pieces of wood in other projects and found that for me, this is very pleasing for a top of a mushroom. So with carving, we need to be aware that we need a good work surface before we start. If you have tool marks or torn grain, carving will not cover it up. It will not mask it. So you're looking for the best surface you can, and to start your carving, and you're looking for the best surface you can after the carving. So if there were areas that needed some fuzzies taken off, I would, in that area, take care of them. And one burr that I like to do that is the ball cutter. this is this smaller shank. So I put the collet in, put that burr in place and lock the unit. And then I would just lightly go over the edges. That does a couple things. It does take care of the burrs that I talked about, but also it leaves no surface untouched. So that small scribble or mark that I'm leaving will be another opportunity for reflection on the paint. I'm going to take that out, and I use this tray. I just bought it at the Bernard's, but it's magnetic and it gives me an opportunity to organize my burrs. Each section has a different burr and the collets are in the middle. I find that I can work better knowing where everything is. I'm going to go on to the next burrs, and these are the Cudsaw or roto saws, and they come in different size diameter is for the wheel, as well as different grips. You can see this one is a little bit more aggressive, although it is the shortest one. I'm going to put this into the unit, push it down to engage and lock. The Cudsaw I do use for making the marks on the stems of the mushrooms, and as well as the gills. So with this, I keep it on the medium speed, engage, and the same structure, the same support in holding your tool. My left hand is holding the piece securely, while my right hand is supported by the piece and holding the tool. So I engage, pulling the unit towards me. I start the cutting. And here I'm going to go a second pass and deepen the cut. Sometimes I make 2 or 3 passes, and the Cudsaw or roto saws also leave a pattern inside of the grooves, which I find is, I like that feature. So I can't tell if you can see that all the way. I go as far down to the end as I possibly can. I'm going to switch the burrs just to give you a little bit different with a more aggressive. This is the saber tooth. I'm going to make another cut. It's not all of the lines need to go to the top. I'm going to angle this one over. You can tell by the sound of the machine, just like getting used to the sounds of your lathe when it is playing a little bit more. And sorry about that. I couldn't see where I was. The cap is blocking the view and I hit the top of the cap. With mushroom, a lot of the stems have pieces that are broken away or didn't grow completely round. So carving areas deeper or making some bigger holes is always a good idea. So right in this section, I'm going to go back and deepen the cut. And I find with the more coarser grit that it goes a little better for deeper cuts. And you can see here with the cutting that I'm getting some burrs. So I would go through and cover all of the area, just like we did for the top, and then do a final inspection. I wanted to show you here what the cuts look like. Starting off, everything is square and pretty rigid. It doesn't have a very organic feel. So after I carved an area, I do a visual inspection, same as previous. So the first thing I do is put in the collet and pick up one of the ball cutters and start the defuzzing. I'm going to go with a smaller size, still easy click on and off, engage the machine, and just run this very lightly on the edges to take care of that burr. If you need to go deeper, this burr will take care of that for you, cleaning up any torn grain or any fuzzy areas that are standing proud. For me, this is still needs some work to finish it off. And that's part of the thing that comes through experimenting. The first pieces, I didn't do this, and I can tell a difference. To me, they look bigger and clunky, and anything you can do to make it look more refined or elegant or organic comes with practice and experience, but it is a good thing to be aware of and conscious of when you're doing work. So I have gone through, made my initial cuts, and I'm going to take this ball cutter and start softening this side. I'm cutting back on this side so that it is actually it is making sure that all areas have been carved, that no area is ignored. This is a fairly quick process, and it does go fairly smoothly. There's no exact pattern that you have to do or follow, obviously, but it does make a difference. So that is the first step, softening the edges. And then I found that I needed further softening to make it even the paint to pick up more colors and show more detail, adding another layer of texture. So what I do with the same ball cutter, supporting the work the same as any of the cutting, I just do a scribble. Any flat surface gets further refined with a scribble. And sometimes I'll do this, I'll go through this and do it 2 or 3 times with different size of the ball cutter, just to get different marks. So I'll turn off this machine and dust off my work here and let you see. Oh, there's a very big fuzzy over here that I missed. So just a second while I take that off. Okay. All right. So this is the area that just has the cudsall. And this area has the ball cutter softening the edges and adding more detail. The next step, I don't do sanding on these type. The sanding is more typically for uncarved wood. I take the defuzzer, and that's also available at MDI, and put this machine on an extremely low speed, and then go over the area. And what that does is further refines the surface, and any painting that you do on carving or wood burning has to be thoroughly cleaned of dust before you start paint. So this helps a little bit for doing that, but it's the first step in getting down in all of those grooves and defuzzing. Any questions? Most of the burrs and the machines and everything I've been buying from MDI wood carvers. So they have all of the items available. As long as we're talking about brushes, I do use a lot of brushes, from paint brushes to remove dust, to my dentist gives all these toothbrushes, so those work extremely well for removing dust, applying paint, applying wax. Toothbrushes work amazingly well. And these are just wire brushes. This one is a nylon, but brass and wire brushes. And a lot of times prior to painting is the very last, I'll take and brush. It leaves marks as well as helps clean up all those crevices. And also my dentist supplies me with a lot of old dental tools that are very useful for cleaning out areas. That in particular is the next unit burr I'm going to show you. And this one I still do put in and use in my Dremel. And those are the Michael K's cup cutters. But before I show you that, I want to show you these shop-made ones. These are drill bits that have been shortened, cut off, and then with using the microcarver, cutting a small, it's just cutting down, directly down, but it leaves a U-shape in the top of the drill bit, and those can go in the microcarver or the Dremel and make a similar shape to these cutters. I wanted to let you know also when you've used a ball cutter for an extended period, that I use these pliers to take the unit out because they do get very hot. And after you burn your fingers a few times, you say, well, there's got to be a better way. With this, I catch the edge and bring it up horizontal and push down. The Dremel is quite a bit noisier. So what you're getting with that piece is a little divot with a ball or button at the end. I'm going to put in this size. And this is one of the things I use the dental tools for. After you've used this ball cutter a few times, there is some carbon built up from the wood inside the cup, and it needs to be cleaned out. So I'll just take the dental tool and scrape around to remove that. Clean it up so I get a good fresh cut again. I've talked to Carol Howell and Michael Chase, and they do sharpen these, and Carol says, oh, no problem, just go to the grinder. I haven't done that. I've used my micro plane to just sharpen the edges a little bit. So I'm going to turn on the Dremel and make a few of the cuts with a cup cutter. Same as the shop made one. I'll catch the edge on the wood and then lift the unit up. Say it as I was using it with, but when using the Dremel, you use the same support structure, holding the piece in my left hand and supporting the unit in my right and lifting it to cut. So the same actions for support are in place. With these cup cutters, you need to make sure that you don't have a flap. To make sure when you're holding the unit straight up and down that you wiggle it around a little bit to make sure it is getting the full circle. I see just a tiny bit of a flat on that one, and I would go back and get that fixed. And that's also in the visual inspection, one of the things I look for. would use the fume extractor. You could see about a bit of a dust as well as smoke coming out. And the fume extractor unit is right next to the carver on the side, and that would be running. I'm going to turn it on just so you get an idea of the sound. It's not too bad, but with everything else going, I didn't turn it on. Any questions about this ball cutter? All right, we will go back into, I'm sorry, I called it a ball cutter. It's the cup cutter. Sorry about that. The next one will be the ball cutter. And,
Linda, you've gotten a lot quieter.
okay. I'm turning up the volume, but is that a little better? I'm looking right at the speaker. Can you hear me okay?
A little better.
Okay, all right. I'll try to speak loud. All right, for the ball cutters, that does come in a lot of sizes. The ones I like are the diamond. They are available US made, Swiss, and I bought all three, and I don't see a big, huge difference. With use and with time, they do dull and they don't last forever. So this one is new and fresh, and that one has quite a bit of wear on the tip. Can you see the difference? The one is quite a bit blacker, but they still do work for some cutting. So until they're absolutely entirely gone, I keep using it. So I'm going to put some of the ball cutters and work on the area between the stem and the gills. And this area is, I use this as a transition. So if the two cutters previous don't make it cleanly, you can cover that area with a different burr. For making a divot, or this is really basically stippling, I support the unit or the workpiece in my left hand, the unit in my right, and connecting with a piece of wood and just push down. And this stippling, to get organic, you need to hop around, move back and forth so you're not going in a predictable pattern, and also vary the size. One of the things that we didn't talk about yet is selecting wood for carving. Soft maple works very well. River birch, cherry, Bradford pear, holly, all of those. Some of the very soft, you have to pay some more attention because you may not get quite as crisp of a line as you do on the cherry or the Bradford pear. But if you, I have done some carving on walnut, and you can do it, and you get nice crisp lines. It's a little, you need a little more pressure, just like cutting wood turning on different woods. You do need more pressure or less pressure. I'm gonna do some of these on the bottom of the mushroom, just so you can see it a little easier. I can vary the pressure and get a deeper cut. I'm gonna change the size, so I vary. Oops, that one is a little hot. I should have used the pliers. Got a larger size. And with this, I engage with the wood and then push up to get it to go deeper and get that little circle area. So with this cutter, I'm also paying attention to the areas in between. And I will go back, and if the area in between is too large, try to reduce that area. So this cutter, we've done a couple things for. We've done it to scribble, smooth out burrs, and stippling. But just like a lot of the other cutters, it's good to practice, experiment, see what the cutter will do. I'm gonna put in a different one of the ball nose cutters to work on the gills underneath the mushroom. I'm gonna turn the speed up just a little bit. The gills, I could use the cudsaw, but the ball nose will work as well. It's a little harder to get the angle for you. I'm going to show you the difference then using the roto saw for the gills. And I'm paying attention to the area in between the cuts. And also going down to the edge. Now, with the mushrooms, what I try to do is break the surface of the cap, and I'll do that with this. It's just another area for attention to detail. And if you can see the burr is making lines inside the cuts as well. I'll do one more here. Then I do the same as I did with the stem. Remove that and put in one of the ball cutters, soften up the edges, and make a scribble mark. So all surfaces have been carved. So I'll soften up the edges, do the scribbles, and while I'm here, clean up any fuzzy. How is the sound? Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, it's okay. It just keeps speaking as loud as you can.
Okay, yeah, sorry about that. It's a lot of noise with the machines running, and I'm using the speaker in my one camera over the laptop, and my face is facing the other way. So that's something I need to be aware of. So we haven't finished the mushroom, but we've covered all of the different areas that, different techniques and different cuts using that really 3 burrs or 4, counting the ball cutters. So it is a very limited start, but it does give a lot of flexibility in creating a piece. Now this one I haven't painted yet, but this mushroom is all with the ball cutters of different sizes, and with the wood burner I did this stippling just as an experiment. It really, in the end result, the stippling doesn't look that much difference whether you wood burner or carve. The only difference is that the carve gives you more variety in sizes. I think with the wood burner unit I have, there's only 2 or 3 sizes in the points for the wood burner, but in the carver there are many. So this mushroom, I did leave some areas that were uncarved just to give it a little bit different look. The other mushroom that is more like a morel, just a second. I did vary it quite a bit. I made elongated to try to replicate what a morel would look like. For that, I did use still the ball nose cutter. It's just I made longer cuts. So even within the family of mushrooms, you can get quite a bit of variety. So how are we doing on time? Do we have time to do a little bit of painting?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
All right.
You're good on time.
Okay. Just a second while I get my painting tray out here. Okay, I'm all ready here. My grandmother Christina taught me at a very young age how to be how to dumpster dive. And we had some work done in our bathroom, and they were throwing away all these scraps that were at the bottom of the shower pan. So those I now use for a little pad in case I spill paint, and also for different kind of carving, it cuts up well, just like Borco. If you're doing a pattern such as a leaf, it works well. So I was happy with that dumpster diving that day. and it was in my own house. Okay, for painting, we talked about it a little bit, but the surface needs to be well prepared and clean. So the first thing that I do is brush the surface, and I'm going to do this because it got a little dusty being in the shop. It does, sometimes everything gets dusty. I use also a wire brush to prepare. With dry brush technique, the first layer is India ink. There, you can see it better. I bought this from Dick Blick. It was only about $8 or $9, and it's a waterproof India ink. And the undercoat being black adds a richness to the colors and starts the surface off with a very good uniform color. So that we didn't have to wait for paint to dry, I've already carved and painted. So it's a little bit of a wave here with divots, and it's all painted with India ink and has dried. Still going in with the saving things and dumpster diving. I save all my caps from yogurt or cottage cheese or anything like that. I feel they work well for palettes for your paint. So I got that ready. Paper towels and paintbrushes. When you're looking for paintbrushes, it's a good idea to invest a little bit of money and buy a nicer paintbrush. The bristles apply the paint better, and they just last longer. It is a really good idea to take good care of your brushes and wash them thoroughly after every use. I say that it doesn't always happen, but that's the big plan, even though I don't always do it. The paints that I like to use are the golden. So I buy the tubes as well as the fluid ink. This is thicker. The fluid is sometimes easier, but in the long run, they both work, and I have combined both, and it all is good. So today, I'm thinking we're gonna paint this to look like water. So I'm gonna go with blues and greens.
Linda, are those oil or acrylic?
I'm sorry, they are acrylic. It is golden acrylics. And I'm to the point in life I need pliers to open little jars. So I'm going to put on my palette some blues and greens to make this look like water. With a dry brush technique, you're really using very little paint and you're applying a lot of layers. To get the full good effect, you're probably going to need about 20 layers of paint. And that sounds like a lot, but it does really make a difference. I'm going to put some brown on the palette. Let's see what else do we have. Another green. And oh, this tube is almost empty, so maybe we won't get much out of here. Yep, that one is empty. All right. I got my paint, and that doesn't look like a lot of paint, but it is going to be it will be probably 5 times more paint than I need. Got my water ready, my piece, and all the paint. So I'm going to start with this area and paint it in the blue. So the first layer, I'm going to take a little bit of blue and mix it in with the brown, just to start slowly. Giving rich, deep, dark colors. And we're going to always start with our darkest color and go to the lightest. Oh, I didn't put any white out here. So I have mixed up the colors, and on my paper towel, I'm going to remove most of the paint. Then just apply it lightly across the surface. I'm going to get just a tad more paint, removing most of it. And this is now picking up that color on the surface as well as some areas below. I'm going to just add just a little bit of water, pick up more blue for my second layer of paint, mix it in, remove most of it on my paper towel, and then paint. It is adding color even if we can't see it very well. So that's 3, more blue. Remove the excess. You can see, ooh, that there is quite a bit of paint still on there. This, I think, is our 4th layer, and I'm starting to see a little bit of a blue tinge. You can see it now. So the goal is to add blue until this paint looks very similar to the solid blue. And I'm just lightly brushing across the surface. The brush I like to use for this is a little bit stiffer, and I like with an angle. It just, for me, works nicely. I like the angle. I'm going to go with a solid blue for this 5th layer, or maybe we're on the 6th. You know, sometimes if I'm really I'll put a notch on a piece of paper so I keep track, but I think this might be the 6th. I'm gonna add a little bit of the darker green. There isn't much of it in this tube, so I'm gonna do that just in one area to highlight. I put it on just a little bit thicker because we're just doing that in one area.
Hey, Linda, I've got a question.
Yes.
Are you pushing down enough to get into the deep carved parts or kind of just brushing over the surface?
Well, that's a good question. I'm really touching only the surface because I want that black richness to go and to show through. And even though I'm pushing lighter, by the time I get to the 16th through the 20th layer, that area does get more paint. The other thing I could do is wet the brush a little bit more if I wanted to get in that area a little deeper. Adding water will make it seep down just a little bit more without thoroughly painting it.
Okay, thanks.
Mm-hmm. So I'm going to add some blue to that green. The purpose here of adding all these colors and all this texture is to make it look like there is some variety and movement. Not all of the colors will be in all of the places. There might be some areas that have more green or more blue, but that gives a richness. You can see a lot of people work that are using the dry brush technique. Donna Zills Banfield, for example, Art Leisman, and I apologize in advance for mispronouncing his entire name, Laurent. And let's just leave him on a first name basis. It's French and I don't want to massacre his name. But if you look at their work, Donna has been posting a lot of work lately and amazing stuff, and she's using dry brush painting techniques. So there is a little bit of the green coming through. I'm going to turn on another light, see if that helps. There, the angle is catching the light. So I've been slowly adding this green to that pile. And what it does is mixes and blends the colors, gives you more colors as well. Now I'm going solely with this straight green. I'm going to wash the brush a little bit, and it's really not necessary to wash it for not blending the colors, but sometimes the colors, even though you're not using much paint, the paint does get inside the bristles and dries up just a little bit. With acrylic paint, they will dry out if you're leave your work for an hour, the paint will be all dried out. Okay, I'm going to go to the lighter green and put that in with the darker, see what the combination looks like here. And of course, I've completely lost track of how many layers. So we'll just say we might be at close to 10, possibly. I've taken classes from other, excuse me, Woodturners on painting. Excuse me. And sorry about that. Must have inhaled some dust. But one advantage of the Zoom is I was able to take some painting classes online from people that are painters and get a different perspective on mixing colors and applying dry brush technique. So I would encourage that, you know, with the Zoom or when it is in person, taking all kinds of classes. It's just wonderful. There's a lot of demos I've gone to, and I will never work on or do that project, but I don't, there has not been one yet where I haven't learned something that is helpful in some way or another. So the more you expose yourself to different techniques and areas, the better off you are for your own work. And it goes along the same lines as what Beth Ireland's quote for inspiration. The more that you do explore and experiment, the richer your experience when you do apply it to your own work. One color I left off is the white. This is looking at a very green. My water has changed to green. So I'm going to introduce that blue back in. Get a little bit more of a blue-green sea effect going. This is the same divot that I use on the top of the mushrooms, but it is going to look entirely different because of the color choice in making it look like water. I'm going to grab some white paint. And also that is the golden. Put a couple drops. And I'm going to lighten up the blue-green pile we have here with little dabs of white, just to introduce a new color combination. Sometimes you can look at your paper towel and count how many layers you've done, but I've been not doing it very organized, so I won't be able to do that today. Adding more white to this little pile of paint here. I'm liking that blue-green. I think the richness of the black underneath does add to the colors, and also it does set them off with that contrasting color on the bottom. I'm trying to get an angle where you see it well. I'm picking up blues and greens, a little bit of the brown. I'm gonna go with a lighter blue for the next layer. You really can tell a difference when it does get finally to the 20 layers, that you do notice. And it doesn't take all that long. It says, oh, 20 layers of paint or 20 quotes. You must be painting for hours. Well, not really. I'm not doing a very long or big area here, but it hasn't taken all that long. I know with the work that Doug Snyder does with a basket illusion, time doesn't matter. You just work on it. Right, Doug? Time doesn't.
That's true. When you're doing the coloring, that's the fun part, because you get to see it all come to fruition. So
it comes to life, really.
yep.
All of the marks that he's making, as well as the marks in carving, are ultimately designed to show off that paint. So you're doing all of that stuff for the fun part, like Doug says, at the end, and all of that beauty and enhancement of the paint. So let's try a little bit of the just straight white. You can see that does add a layer, sometimes going a different direction also gives a good practice to put in place, because you're not hitting exactly the same places each and every time. Okay, so if we were counting, we'd probably still only be about 10 or 12 layers. So we have 6 or so left to go, but we're starting to see the colors. And one color I can put in to the water now is gold. And gold will enhance the other colors, plus it will add a sparkle. So I don't know if you can see and notice on my yogurt cap palette over here, I still have most of the green and of the 2 greens and browns left. I haven't fully depleted that little droplet that I allowed myself for painting. It's always a good idea to put the caps back on paint so they don't dry out. So I'm going to take that gold and first mix it in with the green. Adding a little, it adds a little bit of yellow to the palette. If you get a bigger blob of paint, you might as well just take your black paint and cover it up and start over, because there's no removing it or masking it. It's just an area that needs to be redone. So it's best not to get a big blob. Right in.
Linda,
Yeah.
Can you move your block up just a little bit?
Yes.
There you go. Thank you.
Yeah. I've got a couple of areas with that color that I did get too thick on the paint. So typically with this, you would always go from darker to light, but I'm gonna try to smooth it out a little bit with a darker color. Okay. Any questions on painting or the dry brush technique here?
Do you almost always use the black as your base?
Yes, I always use the black with the India ink as the base. And I typically will add brown as the first layer, no matter what color I'm painting. A lot of that is just a personal preference. For the oranges, the greens, the yellow, I feel the brown mutes them, and I do personally like that. So I'm using a lot of blacks and browns as the base. Go ahead.
Question. So on the India ink, does that raise the grain much? Is that, I mean, it's a water-based dye, right?
Yeah.
Do you need to do any sanding or anything after you put that on?
No, I don't. I do, after it dries, sometimes just take a wire brush and go through it. A lot of the grain is, or the marks are not super smooth. So I haven't noticed that it raises the grain, but I haven't put it down ever on uncarved wood.
Okay.
With a dry brush, you do need a surface that is uneven to take really good effect, because you're adding another dimension. With a carving, you're adding that texture and patterns, and those are altering the surface. The dry brush goes into those deeper carved areas and further enhances the patterns and the textures. I'm sure it would be a lot different on an uncarved surface. I've watched Art Leisman demo, and one other area that he will do the dry brush technique in is he will torch the piece, and it's not carved, but the torching and then wire brushing alters that surface enough that you will pick up that difference in the depth and the texture.
Thanks.
Yes. One thing, when I took the acrylic painting class with the 2D painters, I had asked, do you put a finish on acrylic? And in their world, no. She said, no, she never does. And typically there's not glass on top of it either. And really, ultimately, acrylic paint is plastic. And so she said, what would you need to put on top of plastic? And that's one of the reasons for buying golden paint. You can go to Michael's or Hobby Lobby and buy a little jar or tube of paint that costs $2.50, or buy the golden that costs $18. Well, a couple of reasons. The golden, the colors are richer and deeper. The texture of the acrylic itself is more refined. With the paints that are $2.49 or $3.49, and the two are the little plaid things for Michael's or Hobby Lobby, you're going to get more clumping and unevenness of the paint itself. Plus the colors aren't quite as rich and deep.
You know, the Goldens also mix the two colors together and give you much purer mixed colors as well.
Yes, it's just like, interning, using a carbon steel or high-speed steel or a hunter tool. You get a different type of cut. You get a different type of surface. With the paint, you get a different quality of product. I can't do the same. People were commenting on the finish as, what is it, Ozzies or, but I've heard that used several times and it does leave a very good and nice surface. And ultimately, that's what we're doing. We're altering the surface to give patterns and textures and reflections of light. And some of these jars of paint, I've had for probably 10 years, and you use very little paint, and it is just something to use with good quality. The same with the brushes. If you, every brush has a shelf or has a use life, and eventually it's going to be worn out. But with good care, in investing, $15 or $20 in a brush, you're going to get a better application of your paint. I feel like I'm lecturing and not, sorry about that. I'll get off my soapbox here. But it's always a good idea if you're going to be continuing with a technique to get as good a products that you can afford and use. So I apologize for not keeping a good count of my layers, but I think I'm about at 12. So I'm going to put some gold on here just to add a little bit more light color. I'm going to grab some of my white, mix in with the gold. To add some variety, you can take a totally different color and add it in just one area. So what I'm going to do is pull out some burgundy and in just one or two areas, introduce a completely new color. So I'm giving myself only one drop of paint. I'm going to clean up my brush just a little bit. Oh, I got a fruit fly. Grab just a little bit. This paint is a little thinner. It's, they call these fluid acrylics. Fluid being just, I think, more liquidy. I'm going to add the burgundy in just a couple areas. And what that does is just gives a little bit more variety. Some of the others, when by the time you put a lot of layers, you do get some uniformity. So adding a little bit more green. And you should end up with the lightest colors on top. Can you see the effect of that burgundy or the wine color in there?
Yeah,
Here.
Linda, I gotta say, that's really a wow thing, Linda. That's really neat with the way all those layers worked out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it does give a very fluid movement for something like water. On the mushroom caps, it's a little bit different situation, but water is something that really sparkles with a dry brush painting. I don't know how we're doing on time. It here is 9:16, so it must be 8:16. How late do you typically go?
I think
11
usually
o'clock or so.
9 o'clock or so, so we've got another 45 minutes.
it depends on you.
Okay, well, I can leave it up to you for questions. What would you like me? I can go back to carving something. Well, we can
Can you
paint.
show, can you show your mushrooms again now that you started with?
Yeah, yeah. Let me,
So we can kind of see.
yeah, they all fell on the floor. So just a second while I gather them up. I'm gonna move my water so I don't spill. So just a second, I'll clean up and get the mushrooms off the floor. Now this, I didn't show you before, but this mushroom box has a stand and then a little carved walnut acorn that goes with it. Maybe I can show that on the other camera. So just a second.
I'd just like to make one comment on the dry painting. I always thought you used some sort of powdered paint or something like that. And I had no idea what this dry painting technique looked like. So thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Yes, that it is something that's totally amazing. And you would think, I took an in-person class and the instructor commented, "You're not house painting. You need to draw."
I just was not sure what you're talking about. So this was a great introduction. Thank you very much.
Yeah. So every time I put paint out on my palette, I think about, you're not painting a house.
Good.
Okay, so I'm gonna hold this one up to this camera. It has a little bit of a base, and that is a burl that I put melt paint on. And the top of the burl cap was completely sawed off. So I did try to carve to make the base look like it was the same on the side. So it has a little bit of the woodland scene here with the mushroom and the acorn and a little bit of moss. So that cap has some of the cup cutters that are painted a contrasting color. And with those, I do like to have a little bit of a shiny part of that aspect. So I add, I painted with the color of the acrylics that I use, and then I add liquid text medium to give it a shine. And also I've experimented a little bit with dragon, it's called Dragonfly Glaze. And that is a color shifting, and also experimented with a golden interface paint, and that this one is violet. It will add a little bit of sparkle, and I say that you can see the results on this. The interface interference paint, this one is a violet, and I don't think I've used it on another mushroom, but you can see the edges do look like glitter. And on this particular one, I did the carving on the top and then stippling with a wood burner around it, and then use that area to blend the colors out, leaving the fine lines of black on the outside and inside the divots. So you can be very specific and intentional with your painting.
Have you ever, after you've got it painted, sanded it back just a little bit, or hit it with a wood burner on top of that at all to highlight darker?
No, I haven't, but I have completely started over with black India ink and started over. This mushroom is ash, and I did on this torch the bottom. So on the bottom, I did a little bit different on the carving, following the wood grain, and intentionally followed that instead of making a straight up and down. And after I torched it, I didn't color with the black India ink. I just lightly put a little bit of color on the top. And I'm not positive on this. I think doing it again, I would torch it further so it gets in between. I don't particularly like the wood grain color being so light through the on the stem. And that's happens. You try something, you experiment, and sometimes it's beautiful, wonderful, and you love it, and sometimes not so much. But there always is some examination after you've done a piece. What do you like? What was successful? What needs improvement? And that you can, well, it's your own judgment, but it is something you can use as a tool to guide you for the next piece. So I talked about making one type of thing for a extended period. For one full year, I turned mushrooms in mushroom boxes. And you get to the point that 1/8 of an inch here or there or difference in the shape alters it considerably. And with that fine examination of the process, you do learn. Well, I was looking for a particular one of the mushrooms. It was one of the earlier ones I did. Let me see if it went underneath something. No, sorry, I'm not seeing it, but I was going to show it as an example that one of the earlier ones I made, and I hadn't gone through the process of examining and refining the edges of the stem, and you can tell that difference. And if all the mushrooms are sitting out on the table, that may not be the one that people look at or comment or pick up, because that attention to detail just had not been refined to the point that my 20th or 25th one has. So there are differences, and you can see them. This one, for example, I got a little wild and crazy with the gold. It needs to be toned down a little bit, I think. But you can also notice the my preference for the color, you know, the tones and the colors in the mushrooms. I'm going to change the camera so you can see it this way. So you can see all of them have a certain feel for the color tone. And you can see some development of the techniques, and they may be subtle, but I firmly believe that kind of thing comes with practice and repeating. Oh, I found that other mushroom. Just a second. So this was one of the earlier ones I did, and you can see I didn't get as rich and deep on the colors. It is painted a little bit too thick and it looks like one color, and there is not a gradual the stem and cap just sort of start and stop. I found that I feel that a definition area or a blending area does work better. On this one, I did start breaking the edges, the surface on the edges. That does, I feel, lend to the organic shape of the piece. And we're just talking mushrooms, but it also works on other pieces as well that you have carving on. If it is very smooth and predictable, and then you have something that changes, breaking the surface, it does grab your attention in focus. This mushroom, I feel, was fairly successful in portraying a morel mushroom, and my intent was to give it a browny tan color. It didn't solely get there, but one of the things I had talked about is always start with a darker color and end up with a lighter. With this, it just didn't work. I had to go back with the darker. And looking at pictures of a morel mushrooms, the surface is a little bit darker. So in this piece, breaking that rule did, I think, did work for me. It was successful. On here, you can see some of the painting and coloring of the little cup cutters, the Michael K's cup cutters. Also in this black flower, they were used to create seed pod type effect on the flower. Inside on this, I did vary the techniques and traded the divots that I use on the mushrooms, but areas that also were stippled just to give the surface of the flower a little bit variance. And also on the flower stem, I carried the stippling or the ball cutter down into the stem. On this piece, I did want it to sit a little bit at an angle, and I don't have a bandsaw, so I just used my belt sander to alter the angle on the base. You can see these are all small pieces, and I really like the small pieces for doing experimenting and exploring. I have done some sculpture and some platters using these same cutters and varying the pressure and techniques of carving to explore further. But I felt I needed to get a good firm foundation and stick with the mushrooms prior to that expanding. Any other questions or areas that you'd like to talk about? I have one piece that it's not finished, but this is a small bowl, and it has carved tree and bird and a nest in the middle. It still has some painting to do, and it's a blackbird singing in the tree, a mystical guide. And then this is also what I was talking about, breaking the surface. So this is, a round little bowl, but at the top, the tree branches and the bird's tail both break into the surface and alter the edge. And you can see that a little bit better from the back side.
Lots of amazing work. The possibilities are certainly endless.
Yes, yes. That's where it gets to be fun. Like Doug said, the painting is fun, but trying to tell a story with piece, for example, with this, telling the story about that blackbird and, trying to portray some reaction from a person is really what it's about. You all had a very strong reaction. I'm sorry, I didn't remember his name. The platter, that it was the back, and the work was very, very lovely. And that's the back of the platter. Wow. So his work did get a strong response, and
right.
I think that's what we're after.
Linda, a question on how you physically did that. So you have all this relief on a nice smooth surface.
Yes.
How did you smooth that surface?
Okay, so I used a couple of the sanding things we talked about. I used the flip on, flip off sanding disc. That does help to a certain extent. The danger with this is you can make new depressions. And that's one of the areas you have to be aware of. If when I was working on this platter to make these two sides were at a similar plane. And also, there is no getting around hand sanding. I use the chopsticks with a little bit of sandpaper, double tapes to the edge, and that sandpaper allows you to get into small areas. One of the things is try not to design in little corner, like the corner of this leaf where your sandpaper doesn't go. And if you do, make it bigger so your sandpaper goes into that corner. And also then Sally Alt had talked to me about this sander. And it is from Micro Mark, and it comes with about 4 or 5 different shapes on the tip. And then I cut up a sanding pad that goes then, the pads that you put in to the power sander for the lathe, I cut one of those up and glued it, and then double side tape for the edge, and then it will just vibrate and do some sanding.
So in other words, you spent a whole lot of time making that nice smooth surface.
Well,
Right.
yeah, well, because it's a ½ inch lower than the carved area. I mean, there's no way you could do that with turning, you know, so yeah.
Hence why I asked. It looked like a lot of work.
Yeah. You know, all those people that say, oh, you know, it's got torn grain, it's got tool marks, I'll just carve it, I'll just cover it up. Well, yeah, doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
Yeah, you spend more time getting a good surface than, yeah.
As they say, do it right the first time and it's much easier.
Yes, and you do something, like I said, you know, the area inside the leaf, make sure your tools go in there, make sure your sanding thing go in there. In this one leaf, I wanted it away from the tree. Well, that's not a good idea. You need more space away from the tree. I couldn't get in there. So what I ended up doing is taking the wood burner and stippling in there and painting it.
Okay.
You know, I spent more time trying to sand that area so it would give the effect, and I gave up. And next time I will move it further away so I can get the tool in there. But just like with turning, it's problem solving. You know, what happens, like on this one, what happens if the wood cracks? This was turned green and I torched it and the wood cracked. Well, okay, what happens? Well, nothing. I eventually sealed up a little bit, but had it stayed bigger, it wouldn't have been bad in this instance. But if you're going to torch something and it was green wood, well, you're going to get cracks. You learn things.
That's right.
But it's wood and it's all organic, Linda, and it blends, so it
Yeah.
works out.
Yes, yes. And if you look at mushrooms, and you know, on Instagram, I follow a lot of people that post pictures of mushrooms. So you get exposed to a lot of different shapes and variety and color. It's just amazing how many, my mushrooms are all extremely muted compared to the ones in nature that people are posting pictures of. So Instagram is another area of inspiration.
Awesome, awesome demonstration.
Yeah, very nice,
Yeah.
Linda.
Good
I
job,
learned a lot.
Linda.
All right. Well, I think we're gonna call it is, it's not quite 9 o'clock, but
That's
But-
fine.
Well, it's getting near my bedtime over on the East Coast.
yes, yes.
Well,
Okay.
thank you very much, Linda, for the
Okay.
demonstration. I know a lot of us picked up a lot of different things. I know I certainly did. And I look forward to trying some of them in the future on some of my stuff. So,
Awesome. That's the whole goal. Get you inspired to explore. So
Right.
what I'll do is post the video, the recording on my YouTube channel that has like 2 videos and 2 followers, but nonetheless, it's a place that it can be posted. Okay. Thank you, everyone, for the invite. It's been a very pleasant evening for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Linda. That was
You have
really a
good
lot
night.
of fun.
All right.
We will see you again down the road.
Yes,
All
we
right.
will.
I'll be at SWAT.
Oh, okay. I'll see you down there.
All right. Have a
Cool.
good evening.
Everybody have a good evening.
Bye.